Are you secretly shifting from light to dark chosen? Signs revealed? There's something happening deep within you, something so subtle yet so undeniable that you can't quite put it into words. You used to feel light. You used to chase the sun, the healing quotes, the love and light mantras, the ascension energies. You believed that spiritual awakening was all about peace, forgiveness, compassion, and rising above the pain. But now, something's changed. You're no longer just reaching for the light. You're being pulled into the dark. Not the kind of dark that destroys, but the kind that transforms. The kind that reveals. The kind that strips you of illusion and forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've been avoiding for lifetimes. And if this resonates, then you need to hear this. You may be secretly shifting from a light chosen to a dark chosen. And that shift is not a fall, it's a rise. A rise into the truth of who you really are. Let's be brutally honest. The light path is beautiful, but it's also safe. It's the path of healing, of community, of collective love. It teaches you how to forgive, how to open your heart, how to ascend above trauma. But eventually, it starts to feel incomplete, because no matter how much light you chase, there's still something in the shadows whispering your name. Something ancient, something powerful, something terrifying and magnetic all at once. And here's the truth. The light path is only half the journey. The dark path is the other half, and most people run from it. But not you. You're not running anymore. You're turning toward it. And that turning is the first sign of the shift.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You begin to feel it not just in your mind, but in your body, in your bones. You start withdrawing from collective spaces that once felt nourishing. You stop resonating with surface-level positivity. You stop pretending that everything is fine when it's not. And you begin to crave solitude, not to escape others, but to finally face yourself. All of you. Even the parts you were told to bury. You're no longer interested in being good. You're interested in being true. And that is the essence of the dark chosen. We are not here to be perfect. We are here to be whole. The light path taught you to seek the divine outside of yourself. The dark path shows you that the divine has always been within. But to access it, you must descend. You must go into the underworld of your own psyche. You must face your rage, your grief, your power, your madness. You must walk through the fire of your own shadow without flinching. And that's what you've started doing, isn't it? You're no longer afraid of your darkness. You're starting to respect it, to study it, to integrate it. That's the second sign. Your relationship with shadow has changed. You no longer see it as an enemy. You see it as a teacher. You're learning to sit with discomfort, to hold space for your own complexity, to stop demonizing the parts of you that don't fit into the lightworker narrative. And then comes the third sign, the collapse of your spiritual identity. The titles, the roles, the spiritual masks, they begin to feel heavy, fake, limiting. You don't want to be seen as a healer, a coach, a guide anymore. You just want to be raw, real, unfiltered. You don't want to be worshipped. You want to be witnessed. And this collapse is terrifying because it feels like ego death, but it's actually ego rebirth. You're no longer creating from a place of needing to be seen as good. You're creating from the void, from the chaos, from the wild, untamed parts of your soul. And people will either be drawn to it with awe or run from it in fear. That's okay. That's part of the purification. The dark chosen are not here to be liked. We are here to be felt. Now pay attention, because the fourth sign is the most subtle and the most sacred. You begin to feel a new kind of power awakening within you. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't need an audience. It's quiet, deep, unconditional. It's the power of presence. The power of being. You walk into a room and the energy shifts not because you say anything, but because of what you carry. You begin to understand energy on a visceral level. You feel timelines, you sense truth behind words. You become incredibly sensitive to manipulation, distortion, and false light. You can feel when someone is speaking from soul or from script, and that discernment becomes your compass. You're no longer fooled by appearances. You're reading the frequency behind the mask. You're seeing into the bones of reality. And with this power comes the fifth sign, the call. The unmistakable call to step into your role not as a savior, but as a destroyer of illusion, a liberator, a mirror. Your presence alone becomes an activation. You trigger people just by existing. You wake them up not with comfort, but with truth. You don't guide them to the light. You guide them through their dark. And that's why your path is so lonely, because very few are willing to go there. But you were made for it. Every loss, every betrayal, every breakdown, it forged you. It prepared you. The pain didn't break you. It awakened you. Now let me ask you something few dare to ask themselves. What if your darkness was never meant to be healed, but to be honored? What if the parts of you you've been trying to fix are the exact parts that hold your ancient power? What if your descent is not a failure, but a sacred rite of passage? You're not falling. You're rising in reverse. You're going deeper. And that depth is what makes you chosen not by some external force, but by your own soul. You are shifting, quietly, powerfully, irrevocably. The collapse of illusions, why your old spiritual identity is dying fast. There's a moment, quiet, undeniable, when everything you once believed about yourself as a spiritual being begins to dissolve. Not because it wasn't true at one point, but because it's no longer enough. You feel it like a slow unraveling. The affirmations don't land the same. The rituals you once swore by start to feel empty. Even the teachers you used to admire begin to sound rehearsed. It's not arrogance. It's not spiritual ego. It's evolution. You're not losing your way, you're being stripped of everything that's not you. And that process is sacred. Brutal, yes, but sacred. You see, when you're first awakening, spirituality is a lifeline. It gives you structure, hope, community. It feels like coming home. But eventually, that home can become another cage, another identity to cling to, another mask to wear. And when you start shifting from light to dark, chosen, that spiritual identity, healer, empath, old soul, light worker, starts to feel like a costume. You don't feel fake, but you feel contained. You're being asked to go deeper than labels, deeper than titles. You're being summoned into essence, into raw, formless truth. And that means letting go of everything you built to feel safe. It's disorienting. You might look in the mirror and not recognize who you are becoming. You might feel like you're spiritually off path, when in fact you're finally stepping onto the real one. The path that doesn't need validation. The path that doesn't look good on Instagram. The path that doesn't always feel good but always feels true. And truth doesn't care about your image. It cares about your soul. It will tear down every illusion you've built, not to punish you but to free you. This is the collapse of illusions. And it's the sign that you're being initiated into the deeper layers of your calling. You're seeing through the performative spirituality, the obsession with light while denying shadow, the bypassing, the spiritual ego dressed up as virtue. You're not judging it, you're just done playing that game. You're ready for something more primal, more real. You don't want to ascend anymore. You want to embody. You want to ground your power, not just visualize it. You want to walk with your darkness, not cast it aside. Because now you understand, the deeper your roots go into shadow, the higher your spirit can rise. And this is where the fear kicks in. Because who are you without the identity you've built? Who are you when you're not trying to be seen, loved, or understood? Who are you when there's no audience, no likes, no one validating your growth? That's the edge the dark chosen are called to walk, the edge where your identity dies and your essence is reborn, the edge where you stop trying to be spiritual and become sacred. If you're here, you're already feeling it. The death of your old self isn't coming, it's already happening. And every day, you feel less attached to the narratives that once made you feel safe. You no longer chase healing to fix yourself. You no longer do shadow work to feel worthy. You no longer meditate to escape the world. You embody your awareness and become the stillness. You're not seeking God in the clouds. You're remembering that divinity lives in your bones and that sometimes it speaks in fire, not light. So let me ask you something only your soul can answer. If you let go of every spiritual identity you've ever claimed, who remains? If you stopped performing healing and simply became healed, what would your energy feel like? What would your life look like if you stopped seeking permission to be powerful? This is the collapse, and it's holy. It means you're ready, not to be adored, not to be followed, but to be real, to carry the frequency that doesn't need to be explained, only felt. You are not losing your way. You are shedding the illusion that you ever needed one. The dark power awakens while you're becoming the mirror they can't escape. At a certain point, you stop trying to be invisible. You stop dimming your presence. Not because you're suddenly full of ego, but because something ancient inside you has awakened and it refuses to be silenced anymore. This is the moment when your dark power begins to rise. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. It's not power over. It is silent, rooted, unapologetically real. It doesn't need to prove itself. It just is. And when this power starts moving through you, the world around you shifts. People can't quite explain it, but they feel it. You become the mirror they can't escape. This is when it gets lonely again on a whole new level. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your energy is now so raw, so transparent, so undeniably true that it exposes the masks around you. You don't even have to speak. Your presence alone begins to bring people face-to-face with the parts of themselves they've hidden for years. And many won't be ready for that. Some will idolize you. Others will avoid you. A few will even try to tear you down, not because you've harmed them, but because you've disturbed the comfort of their illusions. Your energy becomes a spotlight they didn't ask for. And that's exactly why you're here. The dark chosen are mirrors, not the kind that reflect who people want to be, but who they really are. You show them their light, yes, but you also show them their shadow, their rage, their unmet grief, their suppressed truths. And that's why your presence feels both magnetic and terrifying. You are the storm and the stillness, the wound and the healer, the death and the rebirth. You carry the frequency of transformation, and transformation is never comfortable. It breaks, it burns, it reveals. And not everyone is ready for that kind of encounter. But you didn't come here to play nice. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to shift paradigms. You came here to walk into rooms and change the energy without a word. You came here to speak when others stay silent, to see what others refuse to see, to hold a frequency so sharp and clear that it cuts through the fog of unconsciousness. And yes, it costs you. It costs comfort. It costs approval. It costs certainty. But it gives you something infinitely more powerful, truth. And with that truth comes a new kind of authority, not the kind that demands obedience, but the kind that radiates command. People listen to you differently now, not because you're louder, but because your words carry weight. They don't come from opinion. They come from knowing, lived experience, embodied wisdom. And that knowing cannot be faked. It vibrates through your tone, your posture, your silence. You're no longer trying to convince anyone. You're simply being. And that being speaks louder than any doctrine ever could. But here's the paradox. The more power you embody, the more humility you're called into. Because this power isn't yours. It's not a trophy. It's a responsibility. You are a steward of energy now, a guardian of truth. You don't wield your presence to dominate, you use it to awaken, to liberate, even when it's messy, even when it's misunderstood, even when it costs you everything. Because once your dark power rises, you realize you are no longer here to be safe. You are here to be real. Let me ask you something only the brave can answer. What if your greatest gift is not your light, but your ability to walk through darkness and not flinch? What if your power isn't in how much you heal others, but in how deeply you can hold space for their truth, even when it's ugly, raw, and unfiltered? This is the power of the dark chosen. We are not here to ascend away from the world. We are here to descend into it, to meet humanity at its most broken and remind it of its divinity, to hold the mirror steady even when it shatters, to be the force that says, I see you, all of you, and I am not afraid. The final initiation, rising as the sacred disruptor of the new era. This is where everything changes. Not because you've reached the end of your journey, but because you finally stepped into your true role, the sacred disruptor. You didn't come here to blend in. You didn't incarnate to be polished, polite, or perfect. You came to burn illusions to the ground, to shake the foundation of false systems, to wake a sleeping world not with whispers and soft light, but with thunder, with presence, with the kind of truth that doesn't ask for permission. And if you've made it this far, you already know your life has never been random. Every betrayal, every breakdown, every exile, it was training. This is your final initiation. And unlike the ones that came before, this one doesn't come wrapped in ceremony. It comes in silence, in stillness, in the moment you realize that your power is no longer something you access, it's something you are. You don't need the crystals, the mantras, the labels. They were steps, tools. But now, you are the frequency. You've become the portal. And that means your very presence disrupts what is stagnant. You walk into a room and timelines rearrange. You speak and programs collapse. You don't try to be powerful, you simply walk in truth. And that truth cannot be ignored. But with this power comes a sacred weight. Because now, you're not just holding your own evolution, you're holding collective codes. You're carrying the template for a new way of being. You're not here to lead in the traditional sense. You're not here to be followed. You're here to ignite. Others may not understand you. They may resist you. They may project onto you everything they refuse to face in themselves. But that's part of the role. Sacred disruptors don't come to be loved. They come to be remembered after the fire makes way for the forest to regrow. You'll be asked to stand alone, again and again, not because the universe enjoys your suffering, but because it forges your clarity. It sharpens your discernment. You're no longer here to be fed by the collective, you're here to feed it with your frequency. And so, your life may stop making sense to others. Good. That's the point. You are the blueprint for a new era. And blueprints always look chaotic before the structure rises. You're not broken, you're building. And the structure you're building is not external, it's you. You'll notice that you're no longer triggered by what once shook you. You don't chase closure. You don't need to be understood. You move with an inner stillness even when the world is unraveling. You know your role. You know your frequency. You know that your mere existence is doing the work. And that's the quiet revolution. You no longer fight darkness, you integrate it. You don't reject the old, you transmute it. You don't scream for change, you become it. The final initiation is not about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming more real, fully embodied, fully flawed, fully divine. It's about walking this earth with your head held high, your feet grounded, and your heart unguarded even when it hurts. Because you know the truth now. The heart is not weak. It's the most dangerous weapon in the universe when it beats in alignment with source and shadow alike. So I'll leave you with this. What if your presence alone is the prophecy? What if you're not here to predict the future, but to create it, by walking so boldly in your truth that the world has no choice but to rearrange itself around your vibration? You are not a follower of light. You are not a prisoner of darkness. You are the bridge, the blade, the breath between worlds. You are the sacred disruptor, and your time is not coming. It's now. It's now. This is your final initiation. Walk it well.